Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Thursday, January 16th, 2025. Time for doing this all over again. Yes, rounding up the crazy. It's Thursday. That's weekend for Congress and Greg Dworkin. Both together, so we'll treat it as such and start getting you prepped. I know you need more than just Friday to get ready for the weekend these days. All right, much happening, of course. No chance that we'll be able to get to all of it. But then again, remember that we don't get to very often. Justice Putnam does on his program Following Hours right here on Netroots Radio. So do stay tuned after the show for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I have a feeling we're going to miss something and that they're going to be on it. So let's see. Any number of directions we can go. Actually, maybe the best reminder of all the things that are happening is, once again, my jam-packed, spam-filled inbox jammed full of messages from the Hill telling us, we reported the news, which, there's more than many other outlets are doing. So there's a little bit of everything. There was more hearings yesterday. Pam Bondi went yesterday. It was a travesty. What are you going to do? I mean, all the hearings at this point. We've learned from watching Supreme Court nominees, same thing. They just come and they say, well, I don't know. If you ask me a hard question, I'll complain that I won't answer hypotheticals, even if you haven't asked me a hypothetical. And I might just say, well, that requires further study. I don't recall thus and such ever happening. Pam Bondi had it all, and she used all of them, insisting that most of the questions she was being asked were hypotheticals. And then when the questioners would point out, no, it's not a hypothetical, it actually happened. I'm asking you, what do you think about this? Well, it's still a hypothetical. I still say it's a hypothetical, or I'm just not going to answer it. There were questions put to her yesterday straightforwardly. Can you tell me who won the 2020 presidential election? I think Mazie Hirono asked that question, and she gave the weird evasive response of Joe Biden is president right now. I know, but I'm asking you who won the election. I mean, I imagine you thought that we were supposed to infer from that you thought that Biden won the election. But of course, you're on the record during the vote counting insisting that Pennsylvania was absolutely positively stolen, and you totally had evidence of that. And I mean, as an incoming Attorney General designate, that's the sort of thing you're supposed to understand when you say we have evidence of this. Anyway. So let's see, we have that. Then she used the tactic of just sitting there silent, I think, while Senator Hirono was pressing her on it. I know you say that Joe Biden is the president, but who won? Why can't you say who won the 2020 election? And there was just like silence, I think. I don't know. So that was a new tactic. I'm just not going to answer. And a little bit of everything, right? So anyway, it was a terrible hearing for her. People still talking about how terrible it was to have to listen to Pete Hegseth. Neither of them are going to suffer for their vote count on confirmation, of course. But I don't know. I guess we're just supposed to get ready for how ridiculous things are going to get. And I don't know. We certainly know. We're not underprepared in that respect. All right, let's see. Other things happening. There are many around the world, of course. I guess probably the biggest international news would be the announcement of what would we call it? Ceasefire, cessation of hostilities between Israel and Hamas fighting in Gaza, of course. And I don't know. What can I tell you about it? It's a last-minute thing for which I guess, I mean, if you're looking at the clock and you're trying to figure out on whose presidential watch did it happen, the answer is Joe Biden. But at the same time, we have like 3 presidents now at the moment. Donald Trump acting as though he were already president, Elon Musk acting as though he were already president and actually won the election and had been on the ballot, and Joe Biden, who even Pam Bondi says is president. right now. And he was actually asked at the White House, I think, on a press conference about, or at least when they were discussing the Gaza deal, well, who gets credit for this, you or Trump? And Biden had to say, is that serious? Is that a joke? That question? And wow, because there's real circulating theories among journalists. Well, what really happened here is that Netanyahu made the deal that he intended to make with Trump, or that he thought he was going to hold out for Trump, but then Trump told him, this is an interesting theory, Trump told him, actually, I don't really care about Israel that much, so, whatever, take the deal that's on the table. But, I think he meant for Netanyahu to understand that to mean take the deal when I become president, and don't take the deal until then, Iran-Contra style. And sure enough, the agreement was announced, but it hasn't yet been implemented. And right away, Israel began insisting that, well, there's some problems with this thing. Oh, there's going to be a bit of a delay. I have to talk it over with the cabinet, which most people understand to mean, we'll figure it out and approve the thing right around 12:01 on Monday, the 20th, when Trump is president, because that's the way he wants it. And that might be they might deliver that up to him. On the other hand, it may also be that Trump says, well, my plan is to push Israel to reopen the war and bomb the crap out of Gaza some more. So that way, I would like it to be a failed Biden peace agreement. So please, by all means, implement it now. We'll call it a Biden agreement. And when it collapses, we'll blame it on Hamas, but say also that Biden did a bad job negotiating it. Also on the Biden news, and it has to be, it will certainly be mentioned. In fact, Greg Dworkin is here and probably ready to mention it too. A farewell address to the nation of sorts delivered from the Oval Office last night, in which Biden said, we're sliding into oligarchy here in this country. Kind of want to watch out for that. A little shades of military-industrial complex thing from Eisenhower. And, of course, all of these things engendered a wide variety of reactions, even among single reactors. It has to happen that people have mixed feelings about all of these things. Anyway, those things and more happening around the Hill today and around the country, around the world. There's still more jamming my inbox, but Greg Dworkin is here, and it's much more fun to hear it from a live person. Good morning, Greg.
Hi. I was thinking maybe I should just be silent when you ask me stuff.
Yes.
Because if it's okay for Pam Bondi, it's okay for me.
Right. Or you could at least say it requires further study.
I could ask you, listen, I don't understand this thing about Congress, and you can go.
That's a hypothetical. Or say nothing. Yeah.
Nothing.
I like the hypothetical thing. but I don't think I've ever seen just sitting there silent before.
The gaming license.
Yeah. Even that's not silence, but just I'm not answering anymore. I'm done talking.
I'm done. I'm finished.
I did see Adam Schiff drove her to start, and she just started yelling at him about crime in California while he was trying to get her to answer his question. I think he's a skilled enough parliamentarian that he could have said, well, I'm reclaiming my time here to ask questions. You're just blustering about a question I didn't ask. But I think he wanted the video of her just yelling, and murder's all over the place. Well,
that's why, all these guys just want his video. Yeah. So
yeah,
I always have mixed feelings about court proceedings being televised. This is not the Watergate hearings with Sam Ervin.
I know.
It doesn't work that way anymore. And I'm sort of sick of sound. I said this for sound bites. Let's have Nancy Mace's chair because she understands that better than anybody except Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
And the rest of you guys don't really understand how Congress works. Congress works to make sound bites. That's what they do. I don't understand why you think we're supposed to be here to legislate. We don't do that. We've never done that.
No,
we haven't done that in your lifetime.
That's the major pastime there. I also, as the audience, I tire also of having the clips passed around with the headline, watch so-and-so totally destroyed.
What for?
Well, I feel like they weren't totally destroyed.
Okay, so these are two Frankie guys watching the play from the Muppets,
Okay, sorry.
But, you got to be that way today. For example, I watched a little bit of Biden's farewell address there.
Good for
yes,
you.
It was a little Eisenhower-y,
sorry.
except for the fact that CNN came out with a poll saying, no, he's not popular like Eisenhower was. We'll talk about that.
That was nice of them to do.
But I have to note that I'm a Biden fan in regard to his policies.
I see.
I'm especially a Biden fan in a big way because I have fully embraced and made peace with the fact that elections are binary. And if you're not voting for Biden, you're voting for Trump, therefore Biden.
Okay.
And that drives a lot of how I interpret everything that he does. Gaza, Israel, genocide. Look, it's a binary election. It's either Biden or Trump. And that gets back to this whole thing about what's going on with the ceasefire.
What is
Biden is diligently trying to do something that's impossible. Not only because it's the Middle East impossible, but because Netanyahu can't make peace. If he makes peace, he's out of office. That's a basic. So whether you're talking about, well, are you or Trump responsible for the ceasefire? The answer is nobody is, because there isn't a ceasefire yet.
Well, that's true.
And why isn't there a ceasefire? Because they announced that they had agreed to one, but then you have to give it to the cabinet to vote on. And the usual two characters, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir or whoever, or there's always going to be somebody who's going to say, I refuse to go along with this, and if you vote for this, I'm resigning from the government. That'll bring the government down, and Netanyahu's gone, and Netanyahu says, okay, votes indefinitely postponed. That's what happened. It happens all the time. It's been happening for 5 months now. Everybody who looks at this and say, why couldn't we do this months ago? The answer is Netanyahu. Well, why isn't this official? Why can't this get this done by Sunday at noon like it's supposed to? Because Netanyahu. And so if you think that Trump has some magic way of dealing with Netanyahu, good luck with that. This is the FAFO part of, well, we elected him because he's strong. Yeah, okay, let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't care. So it doesn't bother him. It may not affect him politically, but there's no way that he is in any way, shape, or form able to bring about a Mideast peace that Biden couldn't, because what Biden did is all the 9 months of hard work to try to get this lined up with Qatar and Egypt and everybody else playing a major role, because this isn't just a U.S. imposed thing. It's the Middle East. And when it comes down to it and you have to make the vote, Netanyahu's unwilling. So now what?
I don't know.
And neither do they. And so, whoa, who should get credit? Why are you giving credit?
Playoffs.
If you are giving credit, it means you don't really understand what's going on. And if you don't really understand what's going on, you shouldn't be writing about it or commenting about it. So,
But what if they do?
STFU.
Okay.
I mean, really, these analysts who are trying to ask these ridiculous, shallow questions are just exposing the fact that they have no clue as to what's actually going on here.
Yeah,
and I don't mean
they're
that
White
from
House
a conspiratorial
guys.
point of view. I mean that from a real politic point of view.
Yeah, well, they didn't send the State Department reporters to ask the questions. The White House reporters asked the questions.
They sent political reporters who understand nothing, which we know, because they've told us.
Okay.
This is from Haaretz, a little closer to the issue here. Analysis by Zvi Bar-El. Helen bombs. Both Biden and Trump now know Israel only understands force. From Biden's bombs embargo to Trump's hollow but apparently effective threat of opening the gates of hell, it's now clear to the U.S. that only maximum pressure works with Netanyahu. Faced with critical practical and policy issues, will coercion be the Trump's administration's tool of choice? Because that's the only thing that works.
That's true.
It is true.
And he's not afraid to use coercion. I just don't think that he cares very much, and so
I don't
isn't
think he's
interested in
very good
using
at this
coercion.
stuff, and I don't know that he's able to do it. And who are you going to send? Jared Kushner?
Yeah.
You know whose side he's on? Qatar, and whoever pays him. Saudi Arabia, not Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's...
Like, everybody in the world knows this, and when I say everybody in the world, I mean everybody in the Middle East. So, who are you going to send?
I have no answer to that. Pam Bondi. She won't say anything,
Right.
so can't make it worse.
So this article says, outgoing Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who's very good at what he does, it's just that what he does is impossible, delivered the keynote remarks at a conference held on Tuesday by the Atlantic Council. He said it was time to forge a new reality for the Middle East in which all people are more secure, All can realize their national aspirations. All can live in peace. Is that hard? Yes. Peace in the region always has been. Is it impossible? No. Is it necessary? Absolutely. His words encapsulated the essence of his diplomatic mission. So far, these words remain wishful thinking.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
Blinken had a well-thought-out plan.
For
Its main
100
points
years.
were published in November of 2023, 1 month after the beginning of the war. And it remains almost unchanged since then, has seen no real progress. And to fulfill this ambition, the Palestinian Authority will have to undergo significant reforms because basically Blinken summarized the principles. He said, quote, the principles included a Gaza never again ruled by Hamas, which Israel likes, or used as a platform for terrorism or other violent attacks, which America likes. New Palestinian-led governance with Gaza united with the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority, which nobody likes. and that's the sticking point.
Well, it's always going to be the one that nobody likes.
From a realpolitik point of view, hates Hamas but thinks he can manipulate them. He's terribly afraid of an actual functioning Palestinian Authority because he thinks they're actually going to want a Palestinian state. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't want that. And so he will do anything to make sure the PA doesn't have power, even if that means turning to Hamas, who then kills his own people, because that's Bibi Netanyahu. And that's the Middle East. I mean,
hey, that's great.
An enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a mystery, that sort of thing. No Israeli military occupation of Gaza or reduction of Gaza's territory. No attempt after the conflict to besiege or block it. No forcible displacement of Gaza's population. That is what the Biden administration have been working for. And one of the most frustrating things in the world from an American point of view, watching Americans respond to this from Dearborn to whatever, is the idea that, Biden is into genocide.
Yeah.
Well, that's the exact opposite of what they have been working on. And again, however much you may dislike what Biden has or hasn't done, more like hasn't done rather than has done, this remains a binary election sort of thing from an American point of view. And that's why I'm so uninterested in commentary about how Biden should have handled Gaza. You have no idea what you're talking about.
All right.
You have no idea what you're talking about when you claim that Biden has done this because he's into genocide or he's responsible for genocide. This is all on Netanyahu. It's not on Israel. It's not on Israelis. It's on Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. The right-wing like
worst actors
are what have done this and continue to do it because they're afraid of losing power. So let's be clear-eyed about what's going on here. And if you're saying that I don't like Biden because he wasn't able to humiliate Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, and Netanyahu and make them do what America wants, I don't know what to tell you. That's normally not how foreign policy goes in the first place. Luckily, it's not the same people who are saying, and we shouldn't spend any money on foreign policy. It's way ridiculous that we spend like 2% of our budget on this.
Yeah.
Usually it's people who say, you're spending 35% on foreign policy and foreign aid, and that's terrible, and we have to cut it back, and it's important because we have to lower taxes. Well, no, it's not those people. It's the people who are saying, he's into genocide, therefore we should never support him for anything. How do you wind up seeing that play out? You get polls from CNN that show Biden leaves office with his approval rating matching the lowest of his term. It's in Carter and Nixon territory. And just like with Carter and Nixon, and I do mention Carter in the article, the only way you wind up getting 36% of adults to say they approve of the way you're acting is to lose your party. You can have all the arguments in the world about how and why he lost his party.
Yeah.
But you have to lose your party to get that low. Again, binary election, I have little patience for it. There's lots of stuff he does that I think are awful. And I don't think he's very inspiring. And I think that listening to that speech last night reminded me of why he really shouldn't have run again for president, a major mistake. And yes, he's old. And that's got nothing to do with somebody else would have done a better job. I don't think so. Not in this circumstance, not in this environment.
Yeah.
By the way, the same poll shows that Harris gained compared to what she used to be after this election. It's not Harris's fault that any of this stuff happened. it's the voters' fault because they really can't figure out what's important, and they get lied to by media that they listen to, and they don't get the truth from media that they don't have an opportunity to listen to. It doesn't exist.
Then the media goes on another trip to the zoo and goes back to the diner, as I guess the New York Times did once again. I'm getting a lot tired of these pieces for sure. And knowing that they publish them in the New York Times too, and who the readership is, I wish they'd just be honest and just run it under the headline of "Get a load of these idiots," because that's what you're here for, and you want to make yourself mad. Read these dummies. And if they did that, then fewer people would answer their stupid questions in diners, and then we'd run out of these pieces, which I guess is why they're not doing it. But I mean, that's what this is. Take a look at these. I found people who were willing to go on the record saying things like, well, you got to get the truth, and that means you listen to Joe Rogan. Okay, right? I know.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. Part of it is, look, New York Times is going to publish these stories for our readership who are the people who have enough money who think that they're going to be able to write out whatever happens. There's a New Yorker cover. Their cartoons and covers are classic, just like New York Post, the headlines. And I sent it to you. And it says, basically it's a guy riding the subway, and he's holding up a newspaper. He's reading the back because he's reading the sports section. So you can see the headlines. And the main headlines in big, bold letters, "Oh, sweet Jesus, please God, no." And then the story, which is below the fold, "Anything but that."
And come on, that's funny.
Come on. I mean, but that's basically what's going on here. And yet the readership of the New York Times thinks that they're going to be shielded from this because they're not the people who ride the subway. And so maybe we should just make peace with the Trump administration and ride this out like Zuckerberg and Bezos do, because maybe that's just the way. And I don't understand why everybody's getting so all worked up about the fact that Trump's going to be president. Why, look at what Michelle Obama did. She's not going to the inauguration. My God, that's never happened before, outrageous. Except when Trump didn't go to the inauguration.
Yeah, well, that is kind of weird, isn't it? That was good, though. That was good and patriotic kind of.
It was a wonderful thing to do. I'm
glad
she did it. I mean, this is real. People meant it when they said that this was, a really super important democracy threatening thing that we needed to be aware of. Biden basically did it the way Eisenhower did with the Washington way of saying, look, I'm going to warn you about what's coming. That's about as much as I can do here.
That wasn't super great either for a lot of people.
No, it wasn't. But that's what they do.
Yeah.
So he's trying to warn people about it. He didn't just come out and say, Michelle was right and I really shouldn't go either, but I sort of have to because it's my job. And I'm trying to set an example and show you that this is the right way to do it. So, I have to go, but you don't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess the last couple of days it's been circulating. I think somebody from who knows where. The Lincoln Project, which, you should always take the Lincoln Project with several grains of salt.
And don't send them money. Yes,
yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, the big clip that people were circulating was this somebody admonishing people, don't you dare turn away from this historic moment. You need to see, I guess talking to people who were saying, I'm going to boycott the inauguration. Let me just tell you, I don't know where that was coming from. They had in a whole argument. It was very florid and everything, very interesting. Anyone can skip this inauguration or any inauguration. I'm very into politics. I do this show daily, and every time that there's a set
you won't
piece,
even watch a presidential speech.
Yeah,
there's some things that are just so rote they get boring.
Yeah, I sometimes
I enjoy. I figure one of us should.
I enjoy the inauguration on a normal basis. For the pageantry and procedure, I kind of like that, and it's sort of interesting to watch that transition. I don't feel afraid of watching this one. I know what's going to happen. But let me just tell you, if you're at all worried about what somebody from the Lincoln Project has to say about turning away from history, this inauguration will go the way they are supposed to, and the person that you think will become president afterwards will be that president, and nothing. Someone might slip on a banana peel, but other than that, nothing's happening.
Right, I'm not going to watch it, but if you happen to tell me afterwards that, hey, a really interesting thing that's not usual happened with the mace this time.
Right. Show me the clip.
Like, give me the clip of somebody being hit with a mace.
You'll see it.
Not just a mace, but the mace.
Right.
The mace was
Nancy
used
Mace.
as a mace. Oh, my God.
They should just pick up Nancy Mace by her ankles and swing her around and knock people over.
Suspend her from the wall.
That's not a bad idea.
The mace is in the house.
Well, anyway, yeah, you don't have to worry about that. There's no history that you're going to witness that's going to go one way or the other because you did or didn't watch. But by the same token, I also don't need to know if you're going for a walk instead of watching it. That's cool too, but just go.
Right. So getting back to this piece here, which we'll probably do mostly after the break.
Peace.
I mean, the whole point is that Biden had limited ability to do stuff, and his popularity suffered from it, but the reality is he had limited ability to do stuff about it. When one examines how the diplomatic campaign to release the hostages was and is being conducted, and despite immense efforts invested by the Biden administration, the final impression, and maybe the legacy, is that without the threats and pressure exerted by Trump, it seems we would not have reached the final stage of signing a deal, which hasn't been signed. The hollow expression coined by Trump, all hell would break out, without indicating what hell is and who will walk through its gates, is the factor that turned the magic key needed to compel Netanyahu to agree to a deal. Could Biden have opened the gates of hell himself? No. No commission of inquiry will be established in the U.S. to examine this, but it appears that both administrations, Biden's and Trump's, can already draw a clear conclusion. Israel only understands force. He's not saying that Trump's threats did this. He's saying that that's the lesson that people will take from it, whether it's true or not.
Okay. No. Well, yeah, who knows how, I can't straighten that out either. And there's another thing, there's also, maybe we can get to it later on, a bit of confusion on the foreign affairs front as to whether or not Elon Musk is actually the president incoming, or whether he already began. That's always been a big question.
It's chaos.
Apparently he's out there negotiating hostage deals on behalf of other countries, not just the United States. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time, just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We continue forward with this. I left off saying, just hinting at, I guess, the story I'll either discuss at some point, either now or later, unless you're prepared to discuss it. Elon Musk out there negotiating international prisoner swaps. Interestingly, not actually on behalf of his native country, South Africa, or his adopted country, however he got here, but between Israel, but the other I countries, Iowa and Illinois, Iran and Italy. And the reason it is of interest to the United States is, one, Elon Musk is not the president, and even if he had been elected, wouldn't be the president yet anyway. And two, it involved an Iranian prisoner suspected of or wanted in the United States for coordinating terrorist attacks against Americans, who now goes back to Iran to the benefit of Italy, arranged by a guy who isn't president and has never run for anything but just owns some companies. I don't really understand how this happened.
Are we sure this isn't just a reboot of Trading Places where some rich guy is trying to corner the pistachio and olive oil markets?
Maybe. Yeah. Right. The futures were released, though, already on New Year's Day. It's a holiday movie, Trading Places. So anyway, yeah, I don't know what motivated him to even try to do it, but maybe it'll be revealed in the articles as we read on, but I don't know. That's what I was talking about in case, I mean, that was easy to ignore given the other things on our radar.
Well, I want to go back to this article because I think this is like the most important story going on right now, even though it has no solution as always. It's not just a hostage deal, the piece says, that attests to the validity of the statement about Israel only understands force.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Biden forced Netanyahu to agree to an increase in the scope of humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip, although in this matter, too, and despite the sanctions on delivering heavy bombs, it never actually happened. Biden should have just done, well, it's not that easy. Netanyahu doesn't want to do any of this stuff. The uprooting of Gaza's population, a key part of the prohibitions the U.S. sought, was not stopped, while tough conversations between Washington and Jerusalem failed to halt the rioting and harassment of West Bank Palestinians by settlers. And remember, the people who are objecting to this hostage deal are the people who represent the settlers. It's the settlers' representatives in the cabinet, in this government, that don't want peace. Regarding the administration of the Gaza Strip once the war ends, a topic that is extremely urgent given the redeployment of Israel forces in the area, American ambitions are stuck in the same place as at the start of the war. Attempts to mobilize local forces, heads of tribes or clans, or the idea of employing an American company that would take responsibility for aid never coalesced. One may assume that a reality in which armed gangs and Hamas fighters continue to oversee aid distribution, as they've done so far, will continue. Another thorny issue is control of the Rafah border crossing into Egypt. Egypt is insisting the Gazan side be controlled by recognized Palestinian elements, meaning the Palestinian Authority. And we already talked about how Israel is opposed to that. Hamas has agreed to accept such a committee and presented a list of people who could take part of it. Abbas, who is Palestinian Authority, vetoed this, announcing his objection to such a committee in the first place. Abbas justified this by saying it would constitute a parallel government to the Palestinian Authority and would take basically power away from him.
Probably right.
So Trump's inheriting a complex and dangerous Middle East. He did manage to implement an important part of his deal of the century by getting the Abraham Accord signed, but he's returning to square one in everything related to Israel-Palestine, which has been the context for the war that has been ongoing for over 15 months.
And I'll also add that I think that the Abraham Accords are no great shakes either.
Right. None of it. But, the point of this piece is, look, if you don't force Netanyahu to do what you want, it's not happening. And it is not clear at all how you would go about trying to force him to do it.
Yeah. Well, he's no help either. And, I don't know. We're stuck. The world is stuck with him because, ordinarily it would just be Israel's problem.
But see, all of that is too complicated. Everybody. It's much easier to say, well, this hostage deal only happened because Trump pressure. Given everything I just told you about how it happened, that is so wrong. But I promise you that's going to be the message.
Yes, I think so. I think that's ready to go. It's a cookie cutter message. They already tried it out with Greenland and Denmark. And of course, Denmark, for whatever reason, lit the fuse on that. Well, we'd like to sit down and meet with you. Not to sell you Greenland, because we're totally not doing that. But if you'd like to negotiate a deal for more access to Greenland, that's sort of like, okay, well, obviously,
why everybody's going to say that's just sell Trump Italy?
That's a good question, right? If Elon Musk can negotiate an Iran-Italy deal, then why not?
Package deal, sell them both. 2 for 1.
Sure. Why not?
Well, you're not in a position to do. Well, you're not in a position to do that either. So what's the difference? Let's just sit down and have coffee.
What about moving Israel to Greenland? Try that.
Let's sit down and have a Danish. Okay. Let's just sit down and relax, and just cinnamon roll, and let's just talk. Okay.
Right. Bet your bottom kroner it will work.
This is from Politico. Biden warns of rising democracy threatening oligarchy in grim farewell speech. He didn't mention Trump, but said no president should be immune from crimes committed while in office. Well, Supreme Court says otherwise.
He didn't
Supreme Court
mention
wins
Trump,
on this.
except that. What's the name of that case? Oh, no, he mentioned Trump the case, not Trump the person. I see. Got it.
Okay.
But he didn't say the T word. That's it.
Right. Democracy must be defended, be defined, be imposed, Biden said. I don't know if he's talking about America or Israel. Comparing the current moment to the 19th century age of robber barons, Biden predicted that the nation would need to once again take sweeping action to rein in the wealthy, including raising taxes and eliminating dark money. Hello, everybody who said this was going to happen if you went ahead with Citizens United and that was just opening the door, all of this was absolutely correct.
No, but Alito is shaking his head no. Not true. Not true.
Well, there's nothing about robber barons in the Constitution.
That's true. Also. All right. Well, but I fly the Constitution upside down outside my house.
Right. Biden also celebrated perhaps his most consequential accomplishment in the last several months, clinching a ceasefire deal earlier Wednesday between Israel and Hamas. That really, I think, was the most interesting gambit in the whole speech.
Yeah. I mean,
because if it works, Biden gets to take credit. And if it doesn't work, Biden gets to blame Trump.
Okay. Oh, you mean? Oh, yeah. And I think that's what Trump was hoping to run the opposite play and say,
and
either
Biden ran it first. So I think that was the reason.
I guess that's interesting. And
that's my take anyway.
That's an interesting thought. I was thinking at first, sort of like, for all the weeks, months spent complaining everywhere and in all corners, how come they're not touting the accomplishments of the Biden administration? He got a short window to try and cram something through and say, this is it. This is the legacy. And that's the one he chose. And it's interesting. And I don't know whether that has anything to do with thinking, well, the other ones are sealed. I think I won that argument or I can never win that argument. But interesting. One last grab for something else. And, why not? He's the only one who's ever worked on it in any capacity, even if you think he wasn't doing a good job or was intentionally dragging his feet. It's still better than what you're going to get in the next administration.
Right, exactly. And basically he went on to say, look, you guys voted for it, so FAFO. What do you want me to do?
I don't know.
And he said, presidents are limited in what they can do, even though people think otherwise, they are. And so now it's up to you.
Yeah.
You voted it. You broke it. You got it. You own it.
Okay. I mean, I don't really feel like it. But, maybe somebody else will take care of things.
Maybe.
All right. We'll watch. Yes.
So those are the major news issues.
Oh.
And, I think that the Israel-Gaza conflict is key for so many different reasons. If you're looking at it from a humanitarian perspective, you really want this to happen. If you're looking at it from a realpolitik, peace in the Middle East is good for world commerce or whatever it is you take. You really want this to happen, but understand why it hasn't and why it not only might not, but probably won't.
Yeah.
Basically, the bottom line in Israel always is that for anything positive to happen, Netanyahu has to step down. And since he doesn't want to step down and won't step down, nothing positive in Israel happens. That's basically what's going on. Sounds cynical, but that's the reality. And you're going to see it with this hostage thing. And we've already seen it because Netanyahu has already put off the cabinet vote because the settler representatives are threatening that they'll leave the government if he goes ahead and does this thing that everybody in the world has agreed to.
Which, for us, great.
I'm
him,
I'm into the mash, resign your commission hot. Let's just leave.
Go.
But he's not going to do that.
No. So the government's being run by AR-15 waving wackadoodles.
Right.
Like ours.
Like ours.
All right. Well, it'll bring the two of us closer.
I suppose. That's one way to say it. So that headline in the New Yorker cartoon is true. Terrible things are about to happen starting next week. And that's really basically all I have today.
Oh, well, I can tell you a few more things.
Well, good. You'll need to.
For instance, did you catch wind of the action at the House Intelligence Committee? I know it sounds dumb, but they do have one. And
I did not.
Mike Johnson, yesterday was the day he truly became Speaker of the House of Representatives. He received a call, I guess at some point, or perhaps a telegram. I don't really know how they communicate that. It was a fax, maybe, from that basically gave him instructions. That instructions from Mar-a-Lago were that the current House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner of Ohio was to be.
Me. I knew it was one of the Mikes, but I didn't remember which one.
If you please, I'd like to see him fired. He's out. He's too pro-Ukraine. We can't have that. And Mike Johnson, solidifying his iron grip on the House of Representatives, a co-equal branch, well, not the House, but the Congress, as a unit, co-equal branch with the guy who isn't even one of the branches yet, and said, you know what, screw our process. I know that our conference elected him to the chairmanship, but once they find out that Mr. Trump has a problem down in Mar-a-Lago, they'll all change their minds. So Mike Turner fired as head of the committee, which is really interesting.
Oh, who did he appoint? Vladimir
I don't think we have that answer yet.
Republican representative of Moscow?
We don't have that answer yet, I don't think. But one of the things that's, well, of course, it's an important and interesting development because, as others were pointing out, he's
one of the big
pretty
four.
Staunchly. Yeah, that's true. He's one of the gang of. How many are in this gang?
Well, it's the chairs of the respective committees.
Yes, and then the leadership.
Minority, majority,
so
Senate, House. So there's 4 of them.
Yeah, and then the floor leadership of both houses as well. In this
but
gang
the chairs
of
and the ranking minority member of those 2 committees, House and Senate,
yeah,
intelligence committees, they get stuff that like nobody else gets.
That's right. And so they're cutting him off and they'll replace him. And I'm not certain whether they have named a replacement at this point, but it's a pretty major deal. And he was essentially the commentary was he was pushed out because he's pro-Ukraine and anti-Putin, like normal Republicans used to be.
Right.
And
that's
now,
why Representative Raskolnikov is going to be replacing him.
Yeah. So by the way, one of the things that could have happened, I was taking a look at the roster there. The current second ranking Republican is, and really, when you read down the list of the people who are there, you're like, what? Who are these people on this committee?
That's because the Intelligence Committee normally.
Yeah.
Is staffed by people who are serious about doing their jobs. So there's like 3 or 4 people in the House you never heard of.
Yes.
Because they don't go to the microphones and blab everything.
In one sense, yeah, you would think, all right, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Brad Wenstrup. Brad Wenstrup, also of Ohio, is second ranking. That's not necessarily the case that he would step up automatically to leadership of the committee. But in case you were wondering, well, what kind of guy is Brad Wenstrup? I mean, I never heard of him. Maybe he's serious. I don't know whether he's serious or not, but I think he's apparently the thing he's most famous for is defeating Mean Gene Schmidt in a primary. He primaried Mean Gene Schmidt out. I don't know if we're going to do any better with this guy. Like, I'm sure he didn't primary her from the left. I'm pretty sure about that. But so maybe he takes over leadership. I'll also point out at the moment, Elise Stefanik would have been the 4th ranking behind the chairman, and now the 3rd ranking. And with her position in the conference leadership, she probably could have claimed this chair had she known that Trump was going to fire Turner, which he can't do, but demand of Mike Johnson that Mike Johnson fire Turner, which I'm not even sure he could do, but he knows that the conference will rubber stamp anything Trump demands. I don't know that she would have left for the UN if she could have had the chairpersonship of the House Intelligence Committee. But
Why would
it's too late now.
That's work.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. She thinks she's into that.
She's a grandstander.
I guess that's
She's
it.
not
But then
into
you could
that.
use this. You could use this committee for that. And I mean, imagine getting access.
You really can't.
To
I mean, the problem
secrets.
with being chair is that you actually have to buckle down and do some serious work. So
What?
all the people that
Well,
we think
hold
are
on a
awful
minute.
really don't want this.
I'll
job.
bet you that the new chair will not buckle down and do any work. I don't think you're going to be allowed to.
I'll bet it's not going to be a simple thing to find the next chair.
That could be. Let me also point out that part of the complicating factor could be the current roster of the committee. If you look down low on the seniority list, you begin to see that the nature of, like with everything else, just as the House Oversight Committee, the nature of the Oversight Committee changed drastically in Republican hands, so too has the MAGA Republican contingent changed the nature of the Intelligence Committee. And Mike Turner may say, you know what, great, I'm out of here. Because I'm reading down his roster. There's up at the top more names you haven't heard because they were serious, or because there's a line for figuring out how crazy they are.
Yeah, I mean,
Brad
the ones that have
Winstrup,
been there for a while.
Rick
They're
Crawford.
the ones toward the top of the list.
Okay, so Rick Crawford comes next. Arkansas. Don't know. Elise Stefanik,
Never heard of
Blech
Arkansas.
Tui, New York, but okay. Trent Kelly, Mississippi.
Oh, now
I don't
they're
know.
just making up names.
Right.
Like everybody from Mississippi is
what's
named
it?
Trent. Come on.
What was I going to say? Oh,
And
what's
everybody
the,
from Kentucky's a colonel. Come on. It doesn't work that way.
what's that old? There's the video game baseball roster that I'm thinking of. It circulated a couple years ago with the fake names. But Trent Kelly, Darren LaHood. We knew his dad. LaHood, and they're
Ray
semi-serious.
Roy, one of those
Yeah,
guys.
Ray LaHood.
Transportation secretary.
Brian Fitzpatrick, Pennsylvania. Austin Scott of Georgia. Maybe rings a bell. Then one of the people who we think has a fake name, French Hill, also of Arkansas. What are they doing down in Arkansas?
But didn't French Hill just get some other committee?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. This
For
needs
some
to
reason,
be
I want to say you
reshuffled.
got finance or something.
This
like
is
that. I don't pay
definitely-
attention to this. You got to ask Joan.
You might be right, and this seems to be the old list. Like, it has Mike Turner as chairman, and that's not true anymore. It's not Wikipedia; it doesn't get updated that quickly.
So,
Dan
in order
Crenshaw?
to be speaker, you get to not be. It's allowed that you don't even have to be part of the House. Can you be the chair of this committee, having never been on the committee?
You can, sure.
Because if you're trying to pick from people
Jim
within
Jordan.
the committee, I don't think it's going to be so simple. But if you're allowed to say, okay, now it's Jim Jordan,
right?
well, whatever.
He's the
all bets
chair of
are
every
off.
committee, right? So also, okay. So anyway, I was going to get down the bottom of the list is where you start to see what's happening. Dan Crenshaw, Mike Waltz, but he's leaving. Mike Garcia, and then right down at the bottom, Scott Perry and Ronnie Jackson
Oh my God.
are on the House Intelligence Committee. Elise
How did
Stefanik,
that
Scott
ever
Perry,
happen in the
Ronnie
first
Jackson. I met the same way Chip Roy got on the Rules Committee. They, I'm sure, put what's his name, the old guy that got kicked out, McCarthy, over a barrel and said, "We want lunatics to be on important committees." And he said, "All right,
the only
as
way
long
we'll
as I
vote
get to
for
be
you."
speaker for 15 minutes, fine." And then that was it. Scott Perry, he's under investigation for espionage. Ronnie Jackson, him too, plus he's drunk. I mean, wow, what a mistake. And now when they're looking for a new chair, I mean, they don't wield any power, I don't think, on the Intelligence Committee, but I guess 10% of the remaining membership are certifiable lunatics. They're going to want, why can't we have a representative who's a certifiable lunatic? Why don't we deserve representation?
Or a complete drunk, Back in my physician days, whenever the residents and fellows would get together, to chat about how the day went, shall we say, at our local drinking establishment, we called those liver rounds. And, it sounds like Hegseth and Jackson should have liver rounds frequently.
I guess so.
10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
I'll have another
8 o'clock.
round for my liver, sure. Wow. So anyway, the nature of the Intelligence Committee, at least on the Republican side, is changing
and drastically. Not for the better.
No. And, and I mean, the Democratic roster is still fairly serious. but they must be beside themselves, knowing that they have to sit on the dais and that eventually Scott Perry and Ronnie Jackson are going to get a chance to speak. So it's all falling apart over there at the committee. But it's an interesting thing for watching Mike Johnson and watching Trump remind Mike Johnson that you don't control this place and you might not ever be able to control this place. And knowing that, I'm going to try and step in and make it a part of my turf. I'll control it since you won't or can't.
What's today? Thursday?
Yeah.
Today's the day that Reuters says that Johnson will announce who the next person is.
Oh, okay.
So I'll announce it Thursday. That's today.
Yeah, well, it's got to get to work on it. Ordinarily, I don't know how the Republicans do it, but presumably they're going to have, if not some sort of a vote, then at least some sort of mention of it in a conference meeting, and they'll by acclamation say, sure, fine, whatever. So the only question is whether it just falls to the next ranking person or they go on a search or whether they have to wait for Donald Trump to call them, Donald Trump Jr. probably even, or Elon Musk, to call them and say, I need somebody who's going to be, they might be sensitive enough to say, I would like somebody who would do things the way Scott Perry or Ronnie Jackson would, but I know they're lightning rods. So is there anybody else who's just as dumb, but nobody knows about yet?
And happens to be on the committee. That would be the perfect choice.
Right. Well, French Hill, but we just put him on something else. All right. Well, how about if you got a Swedish hillock or something? Anything.
Right.
Hey, we'll take anything. As
Well,
long as
I'm
they're
going to
from
leave
Ohio.
you with this observation by Brian Stelter.
Okay.
Google searches for oligarchy spiked last night when Biden warned that an oligarchy is taking shape in America. The top search was simply, what's an oligarchy? And many of the other searches were also asking for definitions. I'll bet the other half are asking for how do you spell it.
And also, is this the place with the unlimited soup and breadsticks?
Yeah.
Is the next question. All right. Well, when you're oligarchy, you're family.
Right.
I think is what it means.
So I'll send it to you. It's on the old site, so you won't like it, but I'll send it to you anyway, so you have it.
That's okay.
And I'll see you on Monday, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. It's a holiday. It's Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to watch TV that day at noon. I don't know. My plan is to go forward with it unless we get some sort of weather mess here and I have to take care of delivering college-bound boy number 2 back to school, but can't do it on Sunday because snow. I don't know. I'll let you know.
Okay, let me know. I mean, if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do.
Right. But I don't anticipate any serious weather, but you never know around here. People, they don't know, they don't have to deal with, they don't know how to deal with snow. But the plan is yes, and it'll be hopefully we can go ahead with it because I was glad to have the opportunity to do one more show before the other guy becomes president. We got to sneak one in, and only 4 of next week's shows are under the Trump administration. So good news. Okay. Well, very good. Thanks. Take care. Stay warm. Are you having a cold snap like everybody else? I think we're having an Arctic
22
vortex
degrees right now, which is pretty balmy for winter.
Yeah.
Anything that's not in the teens, I'm happy with. Happy being a relative term.
Okay.
At least in January, February, if it's 20 or above, okay, fine.
All right.
By March, I'm sort of sick of it. And April, that's unacceptable.
The weather is a factor.
But I will tell you
here.
this, though. At 5 o'clock, it's light out.
Oh, well, I guess that's happening again. So the Bears are happy
I also
about
forgot to mention,
I
should have mentioned this at the beginning of the week.
Yes, you should. What?
The Ides of January is celebrated on January 13th, not the 15th.
Okay.
And we missed it.
Yeah, that's too bad. I read about that once, and then when I figured out, oh my God, the Ides moves around.
No, there's 4 months where it's the 15th, and the rest of the months is the 13th.
Okay.
March, obviously.
They have a rhyme for it?
The 15th, everybody knows the Ides of March, but the Ides of January happens to be 13.
Yeah. Well, it's Eastern Orthodox Ides. It's different. And, they need a rhyme for, well, no one uses Ides anymore anyway, but if they had a rhyme like the one with 30 days and 31 days, we'd all be happy, except that we probably can't remember the rhyme.
Yeah.
30 days hath what? November? September?
April, June.
June and November.
30 days, that's September. April, June, and November.
Yeah,
all the
there
rest
we are,
have
there.
31, except who can remember the rest of them.
Except for that other stupid one. That's 28. Well, anyway, it's not a great rhyme, but it's there. And all I remember is I have a mnemonic to remember that
September,
there's a
April,
mnemonic.
June, and November. That's the good part, and then the rest, February is kind of easy to remember.
Yeah, well, everyone remembers that one. But just if the question is, can you remember the 4 that have 30? And I remember the last one is November.
Right.
The end. All right, that was important news. Thanks, Greg. Well, thanks for wrapping up the week. My plan is to see you on Monday. The weather will be a factor. It's apparently going to be one of the coldest inauguration days in some time, which will have Trump complaining about crowd size.
Crowds.
Yeah, he'll be upset about that.
He probably will, because people, are told that they have to come.
Right, that's true. And several of them will be trapped in purple tunnels underneath the traffic zone. And it's going to be really cold, and he's going to be upset that there aren't people standing out there. And what can you do? Apparently, at one point, I guess one of the Reagan inaugurations, they moved indoors because it was so cold. And, even Reagan knew, you don't have to stand around complaining about the crowds. I'm president. Why don't I just enjoy that? But not this guy.
By the way, since you brought up the committee, I do have to mention this one thing in passing. Jake Sherman just posted, Speaker Johnson's move to oust Mike Turner has left him with an extraordinarily angry House Intelligence Committee.
Yeah. And drunk.
So they're really pissed off. And by the way, I should mention the ranking minority member.
Yes.
That would be Jim Himes.
It would be.
Connecticut 4, just south of me.
But for the fact that it actually, well, all right. He is, yes. And he's been commenting on it.
He's very good.
He's good. He's serious. The lineup on the Democratic side is a good one. No doubt. And
Castro,
you just don't know who they are because they're working.
Jason Crow. Abigail
Stacey
Spanberger
Plaskett,
at the moment, although
who,
that
by the way, is
true in the future.
Plaskett is a bit of a star in her own right from impeachment days. Delegate from the Virgin Islands. So not a voting member on the House, but perfectly permissible for her to be an active member on the committee, and she's a good one.
And by the way, because Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries are ex officio, which means they're officially on the committee.
Yes.
Same thing in the Senate. That's why you never heard of the Gang of Four. They call it the Gang of Eight for that reason, because it includes leadership plus the 2 chairs in the House and the 2 chairs, the 2 chairs, House and Senate, and the ranking minority leader, House and Senate. So there's those 4 plus the leaders. That makes it the Gang of Eight. The Gang of Eight is what you heard of.
That's right. Okay, thanks. We've straightened that out. That's a good reason for it. We'll see you Monday. Well, everybody, how are you? Welcome back, by the way, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We continue on into our second hour. It's a big deal what goes on with the committee. I'm sure we'll be seeing news emerging probably as we speak, though I probably won't see it until afterwards. They'll have to decide who they're going to hand over leadership to, and the fact that they're able to say on the record that you're dealing with a very angry committee. I mean, if you're on the fly here and you're like, I don't know any of these members, I don't know who they are, I don't know what they're like. Brad Wenstrup, Rick Crawford, Trent Kelly, Darren LaHood. Darren LaHood, I guess if we're going by his dad, maybe that means something. But everybody's a little warped in their priorities now thanks to Trumpism. But if you're trying to figure out, are these guys going to how will they react to this, right? And we were told that they're angry about it. That's meaningful in some sense. I mean, not that they won't all knuckle under eventually to exactly what Trump wants, but if they were happy about it, then you would say, all right, well, it must be the fact that the committee is stocked with Trumpers, and we just didn't know it. The fact that they're willing to go on the record, well, maybe they're not on the record. Maybe it's, I'm sure they're anonymous quotes, actually. But the fact that the commentary is, well, the committee membership is angry. Well, they've been told that this has to happen by Mar-a-Lago. They won't say who, by the way. That could be Elon Musk, could be Don Jr., whatever. But I have word from Mar-a-Lago, and it's meant to be interpreted as Donald Trump, that that Mike Turner has to go. Well, there could be some anger, not so much about the direction or leadership of the committee, so much as I don't like the fact that Donald Trump, he's accrued about as much power as any president ever has, even before he becomes president. I mean, the threat is that he'll have accrued more power to himself because he's making this about a personal rule. But now he's, what little power and prestige there was for those of us who work to get ourselves elected to Congress is being usurped, and I'm angry about that, even if you're a pro-Trump kind of a person. But yeah, I think that very often the Intelligence Committee is staffed with, not staffed at the staff level, but the membership of the committee are people who take the job relatively seriously and are, more old line in their approach to things, as opposed to tell me what to do and say, daddy, kind of people, like down at the bottom of the list, Scott Perry and Ronnie Jackson. All right, we'll see how it shakes out and who they come up with to replace them. But yeah, the gang thing, by the way, I love the explanation. The reason it is not called the Gang of Four is that there are 8 of them. And so what do they call it? The Gang of 8. Sure. Again, I don't know. We were trying to quick rush in with the music distracting us and everything. The chair and ranking minority member of both the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee, that makes 4 of them, plus the Speaker of the House and Minority Leader of the House and the majority and minority leaders in the Senate. So the top-ranking Intelligence Committee people and then the top-ranking House and Senate people make up a gang of 8. Who are they? What do they get? They get privileged access to intelligence and regular briefings that are considered too sensitive to simply distribute to the entire body. And so very frequently, when decisions need to be made or votes need to be cast based on stuff that, or rather having to do with matters or impacted by matters of national security or whatever, intelligence sources and methods, very frequently it's a matter of the members of the Gang of 8 saying to their parties, I could tell you what it is, but then I'd have to kill you. And then there'd have to be a special election. And we don't want that. Kill you is one thing. I mean, I'm okay with that. But the special election part makes me nervous. I could tell you, but I can't tell you. In fact, I know the answer, but I'm not allowed to tell you. I'm sworn to secrecy. It's just better if I don't. You'll have to trust me and cast your vote for this thing somewhat blindly, perhaps. But trust me when I tell you that as a matter of national security, it's extremely important that we do X, Y, Z. And it's troubling and troublesome. And that's kind of why you were supposed to have built into the system here. This is a committee full of people who keep their nose to the grindstone, know what they're talking about, are sober-minded or just sober, and can be trusted to tell you the truth, at least as even though the truth is opaque. That will, you want somebody on there who will represent your party, so you at least you're simpatico with your approach to the world. There's going to be chair or ranking member, somebody is going to be of your party, and you're going to trust them to say, look, I've reviewed the intelligence, I've had a briefing with folks at the CIA, now the Director of National Intelligence, DNI, whatever the agency is. They've showed me what they needed to show me for me to think that as tough as this is, I think we need to do it this way. And we're a member of the same party. You should. I'm asking you to take my word for it. Yes, to trust me that I've seen the intelligence, that if you got to see it, you would almost certainly be convinced similarly. And that's the way that little system is supposed to work. And so when you have somebody, the president, the incoming president, who is almost certainly going to be stovepiping not only raw intelligence, but raw crazy ass intelligence that isn't even intelligence. It's going to be handed to him by Kash Patel, vetted by Pam Bondi, passed on by, who's he making the CIA guy? The guy he used before for DNI. I can't even remember his name now. But let's see. Ratcliffe, that's right. So John Ratcliffe going to be Trump's CIA guy. Of course, by the way, in his hearing, he pledged not to politicize the spy agency. Isn't that great? Anyway, those guys are going to be stovepiping raw intelligence that says, yeah, well, basically, what's it got? The sort of thing that would lead them to tell Trump, Hunter Biden is totally working with somebody in Ukraine and he's the bad kind of guy and something. It took $1 bazillion. They just sentenced somebody for lying about all of that stuff, but they'll be centering that sort of information and then telling Congress, you need to pass the new Hunter Biden is now against the law act. And based on super secret, top secret intelligence. And the members of the committee, the members of the rest of the House are going to turn to who as chair of the committee and or ranking member of the committee. But for this purpose, this is for Republicans, chair of the committee. And who will be able to command this sort of respect and say, I know that you think, as one of the few remaining quote unquote moderate Republicans, that it might be beyond the pale to literally outlaw being Hunter Biden. And it's a capital crime. We're going to totally execute him. You think this is maybe shaky ground, but I've seen the intelligence. Now, the intelligence again was handed to me by Kash Patel, but maybe you don't trust him, but you can trust me, Ronnie Jackson, drunk ass Trumper wackadoodle, as chair of the committee. I'm now on the gang of 8. I don't know that they're going to hand it to him, but the question is, who will be that person? And there are still apparently a number of Republicans on that committee who say, we mean for it to be a serious person. This person is going to have access to highly sensitive information. Of course, I guess at this point you might say, well, on the other hand, who cares, given that information has probably been Xeroxed and is being stored in a bathroom at Mar-a-Lago that charges admission. Chinese spies want to use the bathroom at Mar-a-Lago. They bring $200,000 with them and go take your pick. There's probably even an online card catalog right there in the bathroom. Anyway, to the extent that they're serious about doing their jobs, they're going to be upset if the demand is that a Trumper loyalist be used to replace Mike Turner. I don't know why Trump would be satisfied with removing Turner and not getting his choice, or, well, I would say his choice of new chairman, except for the fact that he might not have a name in mind. Maybe somebody from Project 2025 will give him a name or something like that, and he'll say, yeah, that's the guy I always wanted. He probably has no idea who he wants. But if somebody on staff tells him, gives him a name, he'll start pushing for that. But he may also just be like, I don't really care who it is for reasons. I just want to punish Mike Turner for being too pro-Ukraine. And 2, I don't plan to listen to anybody in the House Intelligence Committee anyway. And 3, I don't care who it is. I guess the question is, who will bribe me, maybe? Can I get $1 million out of somebody? And then I can recommend that person be chair of the Intelligence Committee. That could also be the game. He may really have no interest other than punishing Turner and making it look like he controls Johnson, which he does. So, all right, let's see. Other things I wanted to bring up here. Well, let's see. What have we got from the New York Times on this subject? Before we leave it, I will read the actual prepared remarks published in The New York Times, under Karen Demirjian's byline, and also Katie Edmondson, reporting from Washington just yesterday. Johnson ousts Turner as intelligence chairman, bowing to Trump. That seems pretty accurate. Representative Michael R. Turner, Republican of Ohio, not the author of the Turner Diaries. No, different guy. Had at times been critical of the president-elect, so of course he's out. He told people that he was removed after an edict from Mar-a-Lago. Why did he say that? Because apparently Speaker Johnson said that. Johnson on Wednesday removed Turner from the helm of the House Intelligence Committee in a shakeup that signaled that he intends to align the pivotal National Security Panel more closely with President-elect Donald J. Trump, which, again, is inherently problematic in that the House Intelligence Committee is designed as a check on the presidency and the president's otherwise exclusive control of the intelligence mechanisms of this country. Right? It was designed so that the president couldn't say, you have to trust me. It's a matter of national security. He does say that all the time, but that he wouldn't be the one and only source of this information. I have information that you don't have, and you'll just have to trust me. So instead, they built this system of select and permanent committees in the two houses, and then built this Gang of Eight thing so that you could distribute all of this responsibility around. All right, if you don't want to take my word for it, then take the word of the elected leadership of the two parties in both houses, plus the people who are specialists in this stuff, the chair and ranking member of the intelligence committees. And if those people are handpicked by the president, then you have no check here. That's the problem. That's why you don't want the Speaker of the House doing this. You could have a stronger speaker would be able to go down to Mar-a-Lago or out to an MMA fight with the president and say, listen, I appreciate what you're trying to do here. Trust me, we want to get somebody you're going to be able to work with, but there cannot be this appearance that there's no dividing line between the White House and Congress on this stuff. We can't have somebody who's supposed to be double checking your work on intelligence in your pocket this way. I mean, we could have them secretly in your pocket, just not publicly in your pocket. But Donald Trump, not having any of it. And Mike Johnson apparently not aware that it has to be that way. Again, something that we never did, I don't think, get around to reading. Somewhere buried way down deep in pocket was an interesting study of how many members of the House and now the Senate have not been, at least in national politics, except under a Trump administration or in the Trump era. I mean, even the Biden administration, you had to deal with the looming shadow of Trump. And they know no different. So there is less experience on the committee with the knowledge that they're supposed to be working as a check and balance against the White House. Anyway, Mr. Turner, who emerged from a meeting with the Speaker on Wednesday afternoon looking furious, has told people that Mr. Johnson informed him his ouster was the result of a request from Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, according to a person familiar with those conversations. I don't know why they put it that way. I guess that's Mike Johnson's euphemism, so he doesn't have to say aloud that Trump wants you out. Well, we have word from Mar-a-Lago. Well, Mar-a-Lago was not a thing. It's the sex dungeon club that Trump hangs out in, and that Jeffrey Epstein used to go to the pool at. But other than that, what do you mean we have word from Mar-a-Lago? And it's not a winter White House. It's not an official residence. And what do you mean we have a request from the Mar-a-Lago estate? The building itself said it didn't like Mark Trump. Come on, what is this weirdness? The president-elect has long been suspicious of the intelligence community, claiming that its members were part of a politicized deep state that was out to get him. In jettisoning a Republican seen as insufficiently loyal to Mr. Trump, Mr. Johnson appeared to be paving the way for the president-elect to have tighter control over the committee that oversees intelligence matters. / is a check and balance against the president in intelligence matters. You should really, outline that. You should say it in the article. They don't. Maybe they don't know it. Maybe they do know it, but they were trying to focus on a different issue. I don't know. Turner, a mainstream conservative. He's still conservative. Don't call him a moderate. He's a mainstream conservative, I guess, who has represented southwestern Ohio in the House for more than 2 decades, has at times been critical of Trump's actions. He broke with the majority of his party on January 6th and voted to certify Joe Biden's election in 2020. He has also been a leading proponent of supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russia, breaking with the America First stance. This is interesting. That's kind of funny that they throw that in there. The America First stance of the president-elect and many others in his party, which is, it's weird that being pro-Russia is somehow a America First position. I guess the argument would be, well, we are concerned with America First, by which we mean we want no involvement in any wars anywhere other than the defense of America, and so therefore that happens to align with handing over Ukraine to Russia. Just so happens that we'll be doing Russia's bidding by doing America's bidding, you see. Political union with Russia to own the globalists. Anyway, back to the article. Johnson on Wednesday denied that Trump had been behind the decision to strip Turner of his chairmanship, which was reported earlier by Punchbowl. Okay, so Johnson denies that Trump asked for this. I thought it was the case that he said that it was, but what I guess is actually the case is that Turner says that Johnson either said or hinted that that was the case. This is not a President Trump decision. This is a House decision, Mr. Johnson told reporters on his way out of the Capitol on Wednesday evening, adding that he had, quote, nothing but positive things to say about Mr. Turner. He said the panel, quote, needs a fresh start, and that's what this is about, nothing else. Well, it's a good way of ducking things. A spokesman for Mr. Johnson declined to say whom he planned to appoint as Turner's replacement, though the announcement may come as soon as tomorrow, which is now today. By removing him as chairman, Johnson effectively kicked Turner off the committee altogether, since his decade on the panel exceeds the 6-year limit that applies to rank-and-file members. He became the senior Republican on the Intelligence Committee in 2022 and took over as its chairman the following year after the GOP won the majority. Johnson is now positioned to reshape the panel even more. The impending departures of Representatives Elise Stefanik of New York and Michael Waltz of Florida, who are expected to join the Trump administration, and other members who are hitting term limits will create additional vacancies. Oh, boy. So they're going to finally enforce some of those term limits. So some of those names that I read you of members who outrank the true lunatics may be also getting booted off of the committee. I don't know how long Brad Wenstrup's been there. How long has Rick Crawford been there? How long has Trent Kelly been there? And if, say, those 3 guys, I mean, they could move to Darren LaHood. He's next. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, I think, based on what Ray LaHood was like. Maybe his son is a lunatic. And there's still several people in the way in between Ronnie Jackson and Scott Perry. And maybe they've hit 6 years. Who knows? I don't know how long they've been on these committees. Anyway, will that get sorted out here? Let's see. Probably not. The Speaker has a track record of appointing Trump loyalists to the committee. There's your answer for how the other weirdos got there. Last year, he blindsided Mr. Turner by appointing Representatives Ronnie Jackson of Texas, Mr. Trump's former White House physician, and Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, the former leader of the House Freedom Caucus. So what that tells you is, no, I guessed wrong about how they originally got on the committee by strong-arming it out of Kevin McCarthy in exchange for electing him to the speakership. This was Johnson's doing. Very interesting. While both those men have been outspoken allies of Mr. Trump, Mr. Turner has on several occasions spoken critically about the president-elect. He criticized Trump for a 2019 phone call with President Zelensky of Ukraine, in which he pressured the Ukrainian leader to investigate the Biden family. I want to say to the president, this is not okay, Mr. Turner said during an intelligence panel hearing. That conversation is not okay. Well, he's right. It's worse than that, but all right. He also challenged Trump's assertion that people imprisoned for participating in the January 6th riot at the Capitol were hostages. though he has maintained that Trump did not direct his supporters to attack Congress. He's wrong about that. And he has said in a television interview, or several, I guess, that Trump's decision to store classified documents at Mar-a-Lago after leaving office, steal, you can say that, was of grave concern and equally egregious as the allegations about Mr. Biden's handling of classified documents, and that is wrong. It's not equally egregious. It's far worse. I did see some people speculating, well, now he's pissed off Turner. Wouldn't it be funny if Turner decided that the way to get even was to switch parties such that they came even closer to, or in fact lost their majority or working majority in the House of Representatives, the Republicans? Well, I mean, you got to remember who Mike Turner is. I don't think there's any chance of it, and I don't know if we could accommodate him. And I don't know if it would do any good on top of all of that. But yeah, you need a bigger tent than we've got to accommodate a Mike Turner. A mainstream conservative is still far, far, far to the right of the most conservative Democrats. That's just true. Anyway, not equally egregious. Turner and Johnson have also clashed on various areas of policy. They sharply disagreed about whether it was prudent to continue sending military aid to Ukraine, something Turner pushed for and Johnson resisted. They also appeared to be at odds over how to renew Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, that's FISA, which legalized a form of the warrantless surveillance program that was started after the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. The intelligence community maintains that the program has helped to protect the United States from terrorist attacks, but many of Mr. Trump's allies argue that it has been misused to spy on conservatives, which is also a very much revised history. There are a few people on the conservative side of the spectrum, ironically enough, Rand Paul, perhaps among them, who actually did say, well, wait a second, this could actually be bad to do. Of course, what was interesting was even Rand Paul at the time was like, well, this is bad because you could use it to spy on conservatives, as opposed to this is bad because you're spying on all Americans, and lots of people could have their rights violated. And there were plenty of Democrats who took that position, certainly. Although there were also some Democrats who said, well, don't forget, this will be used to target Democrats and peace activists, et cetera, et cetera. And it has been. Republicans think, well, this was what was used to spy on Carter Page, and he was one of our guys, and that's going to implicate us. And so now all of a sudden they were against it. But for the most part, Republicans were all too happy to grant this power to a Bush administration at the time. But again, this program was accepted by Congress post September 11th, in part because of, flag waving, jingoism, etc. from the Republican Party and sticking together as a team, but also in part it did receive Democratic support at the time. And why did that happen? Part of the reason was the Gang of Eight. That's one of the places where we first really became aware of the role of the Gang of Eight. The representatives of both sides and from both houses who are entrusted with a higher security clearance and getting access to more intelligence information, and they would be the ones who would go to their respective conferences and caucuses and say, I know how uncomfortable this is, but I have seen the intelligence they're talking about, and I got to tell you, this is startling. I know you can't see it, but if you could, I know you well enough to say, I think you would be shocked into taking this position. It would be very uncomfortable, just as it is for me, but you got to trust me on this. And that's one thing when it is a respected member of Congress who has an intelligence background and has been a member for 20 years, et cetera, et cetera. It's another thing when it's a hiccuping, slurring Ronnie Jackson or Scott Perry stealing people's cell phones and SIM cards and slipping them to Kash Patel and trying to smuggle fake electoral votes into Congress, what have you. Anyway, you don't want to have to rely for that opinion on somebody who's had their phones seized by the FBI. That's what we're getting at here. So anyway, that part is missing from this analysis, right? The intelligence community maintains the program has helped to protect the United States from terrorist attacks, but many of Trump's allies who, if they were around long enough, voted for this thing on the assumption that they would always be getting good information from their colleagues. But now they argue it's been used to spy on conservatives. Not Americans, conservatives. Mr. Turner was highly regarded by his Democratic colleagues, as it turns out, for reinstituting a spirit of bipartisanship on the intelligence panel, something that had been decimated during Trump's first term, when former Representatives Devin Nunes, Republican of California, and Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, and now a senator, frequently clashed. Devin Nunes, of course, now CEO of Truth Social because of how ambitious a guy he is, having served at the pinnacle of the intelligence community in the legislative branch, traded it all in, not for any consulting roles, not for higher office, but for CEO of Truth Social. Sure, why not? Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Or read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show. Here on Roots Radio, we got another segment left to do today, plus tomorrow, to get through all of these stories. But this is an important one, and it's leading to a lot of other interesting thoughts and commentary. I'm entertained, anyway. Next up here is reaction from Jim Himes, previously mentioned by Greg Himes, of course, a member from Connecticut, and the top Democrat on the panel. He told reporters Wednesday evening that Turner's removal, quote, sends a shiver down my spine. We're almost done here. Later in a statement, he said, the removal of Chairman Turner makes our nation less secure and is a terrible portent for what's to come. Don't say portent. Okay. The Constitution demands that Congress function as a check and balance to the executive branch, not cater to its demands. Well said. Last effing thing in the whole article. And not offered as an objective truth about the way the committee and the two branches are supposed to function together, but just something some Democrats said we had to include because both sides. All right. I mean, it's in there, but it's something of an editorial choice. Okay. So a little bit of media criticism at the end there. Let's now head back into Pocket and see what else I can cram into our last segment today. Jim Jordan also earlier got a mention, and so I thought I might make mention of what has put him in the headlines over at the New Republic. Jim Jordan considers bonkers punishment. For who? For everybody. But why? Over the LA fires. Los Angeles, he says, should, I guess, lose the right to host the 2028 Summer Olympics because Jim Jordan says, well, they're incompetent over there or something fired, I don't know. And it's like, that's not even close to within your jurisdiction. But what the hell? He has no jacket on, so you better listen to him because he's a man of the people. A second administration under Donald Trump apparently looks like a free-for-all for punishing liberal-minded states for their ideological differences, says Ellie Quinlan. Oh boy, remember hoteling? Remember? I never did go and find out how she likes to say her last name. Maybe I'll give that a try one of these days. On Tuesday, Ohio representative, it's all Ohio today, Jim Jordan agreed that the incoming 47th president should consider moving the 2028 Olympics, currently slated to be held in Los Angeles, to a deep red state. Because why not? I'm wondering if you think the Trump administration should seriously look at, he's going to adopt that language now, moving the Olympics to a red city. Well, Los Angeles is actually quite red. If you look around, I mean, it doesn't vote Republican. It's just that the fire is turning everything reddish orange every day. But okay, they mean red voting city, where you know things are going to be run properly. Like a city in Florida, maybe Miami. Wait a second. It's a Democratic administration there, but the governor is... it's a dumb idea top to bottom, of course. And they discuss why later on. But okay, he says maybe move it to Miami or maybe Dallas in Texas, because that's where Dallas is. It's in Texas. Or maybe a city in your home state of Ohio this was Newsmax host Rob Finnerty talking to Jim Jordan about it. I'm not convinced California can manage the Olympics, the World Cup, and the Super Bowl all within a year of each other. The network then cut to footage of the Los Angeles wildfires, which so far have torched an area double the size of Manhattan, which is not that big. I mean, it's big for a fire, but it's not like twice the size of Manhattan. So what? Killed at least 25 people and razed more than 12,000 structures and thousands of homes around the city. Yeah, especially when they're spending time, quote, Trump-proofing their state, looking for ways to set up barriers and obstacles to what the American people elected us to do. Us now. Particularly, I think, when it comes to this whole immigration and repatriation issue, Jordan said, which has nothing to do with, of course, the Olympics. So we'll see. I'll leave that up to President Trump and his team. But I do think the American people rightly see how poorly that state is being run, Jordan added, always attacking the people who are suffering from natural disasters if they think they can make points out of it. Republicans have transformed the national disaster into a political game, floating ideas of conditioning aid to California to force it to bend its ideological knee to conservative preferences. That could include atoning for, quote, bad behavior related to their land management and broken tax policy under a, quote, liberal administration, according to Iowa Representative Zach Nunn. How many people know Zach? None. Anyway, California operates as the single largest economy in the nation and the fifth largest in the world, according to the Public Policy Institute of California and Objective Reality, contributing to 14% of, contributing up to, I would have said, 14% of America's national gross domestic product. An analysis from the Rockefeller Institute of Government showed that in 2022, California was just one of a small handful of states that gave more than it got from the federal government, contributing $83 billion more in taxes to the federal government than it received back. That's actually the end of the article, which is a little bit disappointing because at some point they should have said the International Olympic Committee makes the decision about where to site the games, and the president of the country has got nothing to say about it, except in pitching perhaps one city or another that is making a bid for the games. But yeah, relocating the games, it may be that the IOC decides to allow somebody to make a decision for them or make a recommendation. And, they're a pretty corrupt body. I'm sure they could work something out between the two of them, but it's not up to the president. And yet, nowhere mentioned in the story. I think it was mentioned in people's Blue Sky posts linking to this thing, but okay, for whatever reason, not mentioned in the story. All right, just wanted to put that out there since Jim Jordan was already mentioned on the show. Not really, a huge issue for the day, considering what else is out there. But now time perhaps to turn to the New York Times reporting on the earlier mentioned Elon Musk story as well. We're reading from the reporting of Farnaz Fasihi and Emma Bubala, probably not Bubala, right? Bubola, I don't know. And Edward Wong. Boy, everybody's confounding me with their names today. I should stop caring or just start pretending I know the definitive pronunciation and just blurt it out. And, in all likelihood, you probably don't know either. Anyway, I don't like it. I prefer this game of professing ignorance about it. Musk, that's Elon, said to have intervened to help free Italian jailed in Iran. I mean, on the whole, I'm sure he was thinking of it this way. On the whole, that's a good thing, right? I freed somebody. On the other hand, what the hell am I doing freeing somebody? But okay, supposing you're obviously pretty full of yourself at this point. Sure, why not? I'm an exceptional person. Why am I not conducting international diplomacy as well? And freeing somebody is a good thing. Of course, usually, the people who are in charge of this stuff have the benefit of getting briefed by subject matter experts from all sides on this stuff, and you can make a better decision perhaps about is this the thing for us to be doing given what we know about this person, Italy's position on this person, the person being held by Iran, and Iran's position on both of these people as well, the American position in all of this. You'd want input from, say, I don't know, people with the same sort of knowledge is shared with the Gang of Eight, for instance. But Elon, he's a gang of one, not counting all of his various wives and offspring, I guess. The Italian journalist was released soon after Elon Musk met with an Iranian ambassador, officials in Iran said. So was an Iranian detained in Italy who was wanted by the U.S. Well, if he's wanted by the U.S., why wouldn't the U.S. be a party to this negotiation? Is it supposed to be that Elon Musk is playing the role of the U.S. in all of this? I guess so. Isn't it odd and illegal? Yes. When an Italian journalist, the body of the story now explains for us, was arrested in Iran in December, her boyfriend back home feared she might linger in prison for years. So amid talk that Iran and Italy were negotiating a prisoner swap that involved the United States, he says, he decided to try to get a message to someone who might be in a position to help. President Biden? President Trump? President Musk. That's right, his name was Elon Musk. This is, ordinarily I would say, that's a bad idea. You shouldn't do it. But he did get his girlfriend back, so I'm sure he's happy. But does he also drive a Cybertruck? Don't know. Not only was Mr. Musk close to President-elect Donald J. Trump, perhaps you've heard of him, a month before the journalist was detained, the tech billionaire had a secret meeting with the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations. Also problematic. And so I guess here you're saying the boyfriend says, it may be the case that the boyfriend says, I hate Elon Musk. He's a total idiot. Can't stand Donald Trump either. But this just might work, and that's the most important thing to me. Yeah. On the other hand, this is why we have a government, and they consider these things. I appreciate that this is best for you. We just need to figure out whether it's best for, the rest of us. Last week, the journalist Cecilia Sala, 29, was released from prison in Iran, and days later, an Iranian engineer whom Italy had detained on an American extradition request was also freed. So America first, I guess, except for if Elon Musk says, I don't know, I think I should do this. The engineer was accused of nothing serious, right? Providing material for drones used in an Iranian-backed militia attack on a U.S. military base that killed 3 American servicemen. But Elon Musk knows what to do. He's let him go. Mr. Musk helped secure the release of Ms. Sala by reaching out to Iran's ambassador to the UN, who he met with, Amir Saeed Iravani, according to 2 Iranian officials, one a senior diplomat at the foreign ministry, who are both familiar with the terms of the prisoner exchange. They asked that their names not be published because they were discussing a sensitive issue. And also, they were sensitive to my having to try to pronounce their name later on. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Neither Mr. Musk, or Musk, however he says it, nor representatives of the Trump transition responded to repeated requests for comment. How Mr. Musk, an increasingly active, if uncredentialed, player on the world stage since the Trump victory, came to take up the journalist's cause remains unclear. She's hot. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe not. He is close with Italy's prime minister. Is that right? Giorgia Meloni. Remember, you're a Meloni, who traveled to Mar-a-Lago. That might be part of the answer. The Trump estate in Florida, in case you didn't know, where Mr. Musk has been a regular and met with the president-elect on January 4th. But Trump probably didn't. Well, Musk did the talking, maybe. Ms. Meloni said at a news conference last week that Ms. Sala's release was the result of a, quote, complex work of diplomatic triangulation with Iran and obviously also with the United States of America, or at least Elon Musk, I would have said. Her office and the Italian Foreign Ministry declined to comment for this article. They just wanted to leave it at the United States. A senior Biden administration official said the American government had not been consulted about the negotiations, had not been given advance word about the release, and disapproved of the deal. John Kirby, the spokesman for the National Security Council, said that the deal had been, quote, an Italian decision from soup to nuts. And this one, I guess, a little bit more nuts than usual. At the news conference, Ms. Maloney said that she did not know what part, if any, Mr. Musk had played in Ms. Saleh's release. If he had a role, I'm not aware of it, she said. Well, there you have it. The ambiguity highlights the unusual role Mr. Musk has been playing as he sits at Mr. Trump's side, backing far-right parties in Europe, even as he continues to promote his business interests abroad. Italy, for example, just out of a hat, is currently exploring a potential deal with Mr. Musk's SpaceX to provide secure communications, maybe, for government and military officials through Starlink. Isn't that something, has anybody told, what's her name? The lunatic lady from the last Trump go-round? Shoot, why am I blanking on her crazy-ass name? Sidney Powell. There we go. Has anybody told Sidney Powell that Elon Musk is responsible for Italian military satellites all of a sudden? No, because it was Italian military satellites that were used to, quote unquote, supposedly to rig the election against Trump in 2020. Sidney Powell was certain of this. I mean, maybe she does know. Maybe she's happy about this. No, we should replace their military satellites with ones that Elon makes so that we can use them to rig elections later. No, it's all kind of crazy. But, I just want to see if Sidney Powell gets excited about it. But just putting that out there in the context of every Republican accusation is a confession. Now Elon Musk is dealing with the Italian government to sell them new military satellite capability. I mean, if their weirdos think that this is something they can use to rig elections, I assume, every accusation is a confession. So maybe that's what's coming. Maybe some space lasers that set fires as well. And Ms. Maloney has been one of Mr. Musk's ever-present European allies, hosting him at her party's conference in 2023 and attending a gala with him last October. Remember, his politics were a big mystery at the time. By the time of Ms. Maloney's trip to Mar-a-Lago, Ms. Saleh's boyfriend, Daniele Ranieri, maybe, had already sought out Mr. Musk's help through an intermediary. He said, and I mean, it's spelled like what we would as Americans say Danielle, except there's only one L. So it might just be a weird spelling of something he pronounces more like Daniel. Daniel Ranieri. Okay. What did he say again? Oh, he had already sought out Musk's help through an intermediary by the time Maloney showed up at Mar-a-Lago. In an interview, Mr. Ranieri said that he had thought of him, Musk, because he had read that there was, quote, a channel between Musk and the Iranian diplomats, and that Musk also works in close contact with Trump. Oh, had he heard that? That is interesting. How did he hear that? Mr. Ranieri, who is also a journalist, said he fired off a message on December 29th to an Italian computer expert. Oh, my God. I mean, I'm starting to worry about what kind of journalism this guy does. I mean, maybe he's great, but I mean, it's just weirdly it just gives me such Sidney Powell vibes, this whole thing. An Italian computer expert fired off a message to an Italian computer expert and an associate of Mr. Musk's to ask if he could bring Ms. Saleh's case to the billionaire's attention and seek his help. You got to try to do anything you can, I guess. Get your girlfriend out. An Italian computer expert. There are Italian computer experts. Some of these computers speak Italian, and you got to be able to. I need you to sort of the information, right? This is totally not at all ethnocentric or ethnocentric, but racist, essentially, except for Italian is not a race. But what do you say? Xenophobic? You're making fun of Italian accents? How dare you? This whole thing is crazy. Okay, mine's the least offensive part of all of this. The computer expert, now we know who it is, Andrea Stroppa, said in an interview that Mr. Musk had acknowledged the request. Oh my God, why am I doing this? But that he did not know whether he had become involved in the case. In November, weeks before Ms. Saleh was arrested, Mr. Musk met for more than an hour with the Iranian ambassador at the Iranian's residence in Manhattan to discuss defusing tensions between Tehran and Washington as a new administration prepared to take power. That's interesting. This was before she was arrested. So at some point, I don't know whether it was related or not, but, we're always worried that the Russians and or Chinese and or North Koreans are snatching up American citizens when they need leverage or they need somebody to get free. I need our spy released from American or American allied custody. Let's grab somebody, say they're conducting espionage, and then we'll just trade the bodies. But they hadn't yet arrested anybody. I mean, it's interesting because Musk is talking about easing tensions with Iran. Iran needs somebody released by the Italians. The Italians are holding them on behalf of the Americans. And then they go and arrest Ms. Saleh all of a sudden. And here is this guy, Daniel Ranieri, appealing to Musk, please get her released. It seems to work, but, I wonder whether he considered at all that the Iranians may have grabbed her because Musk had approached them and said he wanted to work out some kind of a deal and they needed something that they could use to make a deal, to leverage out the person that was being held in Italy. So they kidnap this guy's girlfriend. And here he is begging Elon Musk, whose meeting with the Iranians may have precipitated the grabbing of Ms. Saleh, please let her go. That would really be interesting. But if she gets let go, I'm sure he's happy and not interested enough maybe as a journalist to investigate whether or not Musk's meeting with the Iranians in November precipitated her arrest in the first place. The Iranian officials interviewed for this article said that Mr. Musk contacted the ambassador again shortly after Prime Minister Meloni visited Mar-a-Lago. The prisoner exchange between Iran and Italy then unfolded rapidly. Iran released Ms. Saleh on January 8th, and 4 days later, Italy freed the Iranian engineer, Mohammed Abedini, Najafabadi. That's my best guess. Probably not too far off. Mr. Abedini, that's how they're referring to him? Okay. Mr. Abedini, that's the guy, Mohammed Abedini Najafabadi. I've managed to get through Najafabadi only to find out that he's actually Mr. Abedini, have been detained at the request of the U.S. Justice Department, but we know how biased they are under Biden. A federal court in Massachusetts accused him of procuring drone technology for Iran that was used in the attack on the American base, which was in Jordan, in January of 2024. The two Iranian officials said that when Mr. Musk spoke with the ambassador, he requested that Iran release Ms. Saleh and reassured him that the United States would not pressure Italy to extradite the Iranian engineer. How is he in a position to do this? One wonders. Iran's mission to the UN declined to comment on the recent engagement between Mr. Musk and the ambassador. In a statement, it said the two detainees had been released as a result of, quote, bilateral cooperation and coordinated efforts of the political and intelligence sectors of Iran and Italy. All sides are being circumspect in public about what transpired, probably because it's now maybe reached Elon Musk's brain that he caused this whole thing. But to many observers, the speedy release of the prisoners following the meeting between Trump and Meloni suggested that the topic had been discussed and a resolution was reached, not that he was able to conclude a deal in a short meeting with Meloni. The most likely reconstruction is that she got a signal of understanding from Trump that the incoming administration would not raise huge problems if it released Abedini, said Ferdinando Nelli Feroci, a former Italian diplomat. Italy detained Mr. Abedini in mid-December as he was transiting through Milan's airport. 3 days later, agents from the intelligence wing of the Revolutionary Guard raided Ms. Saleh's hotel room in Tehran and threw her into solitary confinement at Evin prison. She had traveled to Iran on a journalist visa. A member of Iran's Revolutionary Guards and the two Iranian officials said the journalist had been arrested to pressure Italy to release Mr. Abedini. So they actually did, in fact, snatch her up. With the idea being, well, we'll hold her hostage and trade her for Abedini. And even though Abedini was wanted in the United States for activity that led to a terrorist attack that killed American service members, Donald Trump signaled, that's okay, I don't really care, they're suckers, and we'll make the trade. Why? I don't know. Because Elon Musk asked me to, I guess. So, Elon Musk met in November with the Iranians and said, we'd like to get on better terms with you. Then in December, Italy snatches up Mr. Abedini as he's moving through the Milan airport. And then by January, the Iranians say, well, here's what we should be doing. Let's arrest an American who, this is still December. 3 days after snatching up Abedini in Milan, they snatch up Ms. Saleh out of her hotel room in Tehran and then say, I know an American who we can talk to facilitate this trade. How do I know? Because he approached us in November and said he would have a soft spot for us. He'd have his door open and we can talk to him. So then, great, we'll pocket that. December, our guy got grabbed. If we grab an American, I can talk to Musk to make a swap happen. Who's kissing Musk's ass and all this? Saleh's boyfriend. Thank you for getting her released. Well, no, you don't want to thank me for getting her arrested in the first place? No, I wouldn't want to thank you for that. Why? Is that what happened? Well, I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, the Iran's Revolutionary Guards, who I guess you should not be listening to and taking the word for, are the ones who said that they arrested Saleh to pressure Italy to release Abedini in the first place. Maybe they're lying. Iran has made the detention of foreign and dual nationals a centerpiece of its foreign policy for nearly 5 decades, in case you think you didn't see it coming. It doesn't matter who you are, Shaheen Modares, a Rome-based expert on Iran and international security, said in a telephone interview. You can be a journalist, a diplomat, a tourist. He said, what matters is if Iran thinks it can use you as leverage. I don't know what the situation was. My initial reaction was, oh, gosh, don't go to Iran, even on a journalist visa. You're going to get yourself arrested and used as a bargaining chip. But I don't know what her background is. And I don't know, maybe she had good reason. Ms. Saleh said in an interview that she had been held in a cell with no mattress and had slept on the floor with one blanket on top and another below. For weeks, she was denied her glasses, and throughout her detention, she did not see a human face. She could hear the sound of other inmates crying and vomiting, she said, and was blindfolded and interrogated for hours nearly every day, she said. What she feared the most, she said, was that I would go insane. Although, I don't know how stable you were when you said, let me go to Iran. But, probably not as bad as it would be after solitary confinement and torture. Mr. Ranieri, her boyfriend, said that on January 2nd, Ms. Maloney told Ms. Saleh's mother that within the next 48 hours there would be an important development. So he got a hint of it. Mr. Stroppa, the programmer, the Italian computer expert, dropped hints in his account on X, of course. He posted a portrayal of Mr. Trump, Ms. Maloney, and Mr. Musk in ancient Roman attire on the day the Prime Minister visited Mar-a-Lago. And on that day, Ms. Saleh was released. On the day, a different day, that Saleh was released, he posted an AI-generated photo of Mr. Musk eating spaghetti with an Italian flag emoji. I mean, this is like QAnon level messaging. Oh, yeah. A secret message of an AI photo of Musk eating spaghetti. Get it? Because, I don't know, somehow Italy was involved. Ms. Saleh said she understood that Italy's government did what it had to do to free her, and whoever it was they needed to talk to, they talked to, she said. And now I'm curious what kind of journalism work she and her boyfriend do, and what was so important that she get to Iran for it, and what was so important that you trade away the custody of a guy who's wanted for a terrorist attack in which Americans were killed. I find that very interesting. Anyway, time for us to exit for today. I hope it's all worth it, but, it's a pretty big Logan Act violation. But, will he be charged with it? Of course not. The DOJ is collapsing in the next couple of days to be replaced by the QAnon machine recruited from the Trump administration. All right. Wow. Well, there's a lot going on. And maybe tomorrow we can read a little bit more. Somebody has a very interesting insight into Elon Musk's psyche that I thought would be worth sharing. And who knows? We'll see what kind of other stories are generated for the rest of the day and how much time that'll give us to get to all of these things that I'd really like to share with you before exiting for the week on Friday. But now, time to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And maybe we got a few minutes here, one in particular, to tell you about what's on tap for there. I told you I was going to be skipping things. Has he gotten to others? Let's see. Career prosecutors discussed whether Pam Bondi perjured herself during her confirmation hearing. I think maybe yes. On the rest of the menu today, nearly 20 Tennessee Republican lawmakers were hit with federal subpoenas. I guess they'll ignore those for a couple of days in a massive corruption trial. Maybe they'll all get pardoned, like next week.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Well, of course, there's lots from around the country and around the world on tap. He always has an eye out for the things that we tend to skip. Let's see what's international here, just for the hell of it. Japan launched an independent mission to NATO as tensions with Russia, China, and North Korea rise. How interesting. NATO, an unusual forum. We'll see you tomorrow.